You're listening to the Healing from CPTSD podcast. My name is Justin Vanderwind, and I am your host. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how one of the first mantras we should learn to practice while healing from CPTSD is, it's not me, it's them. If you haven't done so already, be sure to visit our website at healingfromcptsd.com and sign up on our email list for regular updates, a free weekly newsletter, as well as to be first in line for the launch of the Healing from CPTSD course. All links will be in the description below. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Healing from CPTSD. My name is Justin Vanderwind, and I am your host. So first of all, I just want to apologize that there wasn't a episode up last week. I actually came down with a little bit of a cold. It wasn't COVID, luckily. Just an everyday regular cold. Remember when everybody used to just get, there was just actual sickness, just like a regular cold, chicken soup and Gatorade and stuff like that. So it wasn't too bad, but I was kind of, I wanted to let myself rest and things like that. I still have a couple of symptoms. So you might hear that in my voice in this episode, but mostly I'm doing okay. But I definitely wanted to, hop on and do another episode, because I'm mostly feeling better. So in today's episode, I wanted to talk about how, as survivors of narcissistic abuse, one of the biggest ways of taking your life back, of literally healing from CPTSD, and you'll see this when the course comes out, if you decide to take it, is that a big part, I would argue probably the biggest part of overcoming CPTSD is overcoming the deep and intense conditioning that has, that we've been conditioned with by the narcissist. I mean, it really is like brainwashing and programming. So we've got to, and it's not enough just to, getting away from them is the ideal, right? But even when you're able to do that, if you're able to do that, you got, unfortunately, and I know this I've struggled with anger with this idea as well, that, we're going to have to do a lot of more work that, and it's like, hey, I didn't sign up for this. It's like, now I have to do all this like extra work because somebody else screwed me up, because somebody else did this to me. So now I've got to go back and put in all these extra hours and to get back to like normal so I can function. So like many of you, I deal with, I've struggled with anger quite a bit, but, so the conditioning, and a big part of the conditioning that we have to deal with is the vicious inner critic. And, cause it's going to keep telling you over and over and over. To me, the vicious inner critic really is just the narcissist in your head, right? It's really the same being. It's the same. There's not much difference. Yeah, it's your thoughts, but it was put there by your narcissist. And so, it's like you've got to take care of the vicious inner critic, but then you've got to take care of the conditioning that came from the narcissist as well as the vicious inner critic. So, to undo it, it takes some time. It takes some conditioning and reconditioning, and you have to want it. I wish that dealing with CPTSD and stuff like this was, you could just kind of take a pill and everything would be back to normal. You can get back to, you can get your life back. I've done it. But you've got to want it enough to work on yourself. And also, as you'll see when you, should you go through the course when it comes out, you can take all kinds of courses, you can go to all kinds of therapists and everything like that. And I would actually argue that this really applies to any kind of emotional or psychological issues that one is struggling with, right? Where, you've really got to do your work. You can go see a therapist once a week or whatever, once every 2 weeks, but you've got to, if you really want to make progress, right, in whatever area it is, emotionally or psychologically, you have to do the bulk of the work. And I don't know if the therapist I saw didn't tell me that, like there wasn't any really good training programs or anything that, so, unfortunately, it's on you. It's on us. And this podcast and just me myself, having gone through narcissistic abuse myself, and struggling with CPTSD for many years of my life. Even the course, right? The Healing from CPTSD course. This is all meant to be sort of support, right? It's not meant to. There's nothing that can really save you out there other than what, you can, find tools that can help you to sort of save yourself. And it's not so much saving yourself, but it's really about what's going on inside of you. And the only person who's going to be able to really undo all that and undo that conditioning is you, right? So a big part of that, reconditioning is almost like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like mantras, right? Some of you might be into that type of thing. Some of you may not, but or just like sort of like positive sayings that you kind of like repeat to yourself over and over and over. That doing that, I don't know what your feelings are on that, or even if you're trying to bring something into your life, or visualize something, or change your thinking, or change certain habits. A big part of all of that is always mental conditioning. So, conditioning is, kind of like how it sounds. It's practice, right? So you have to kind of like repeat and repeat. You've had so much garbage sort of repeated at you, and just destructive, horrible things said to you, and, for so long, again, especially if it's like one of your parents that's the narcissist, that, your subconscious picked all that up, and that's your programming. So you've got to reverse it, and then you've got to recondition your brain to get out of it. And dealing with the vicious inner critic is, I would argue, probably the first step to being able to do that, right? The first, I would say it's probably the first major area you want to focus on when trying to overcome CPTSD. And it's weird. The vicious inner critic is weird because, you may have had this experience, if you've been trying to, overcome the vicious inner critic, or to sort of acknowledge it, right? To see it and then to stop it. If you've tried that, right? Like, oh, okay, while I'm going through my day, maybe I can try to like recognize my vicious inner critic and then stop it when it's happening. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but it can be kind of strange, and it's weird to that in and of itself takes a little bit of like sort of mental discipline, just to sort of like watch your thoughts, and that's kind of what cognitive behavioral therapy is trying to do. Just becoming more aware of your thoughts and stuff like that. I can tell you, I was so obsessed with trying to understand what was going on with me, even before I realized I had CPTSD, that I was doing everything. I was like, obsessed. So my ability to sort of get to the point where I could recognize my own thoughts and then counter them with like positive or more rational thinking became quite formidable. But you gotta understand, it's just like a muscle, right? It's just like you're using a muscle. I just wanted to stop feeling so bad all the time on the inside. But it's amazing that I didn't even realize, people talk about the vicious inner critic, and I didn't even realize that I had one. I mean, people talk about hearing voices. I personally, I think it's different for everyone, but I don't think I really hear voices, but I guess it's just thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, just for me anyway. I'm just describing my own experiences with this thing. But, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but it really comes down to, the vicious inner critic comes down to your feelings more than anything. Because it's putting you down. It's making you feel bad. It's giving you anxiety. It's giving you panic attacks. And then when you add in emotional flashbacks with the vicious inner critic, it's almost like a vicious cycle that your brain itself can't even really get out of, or to learn how to get a handle on it, so you can sort of slow that emotional flashback down, stop the inner critic, and get out of that space emotionally. I remember being in those certain spaces where I didn't know what the vicious inner critic was. I didn't realize, because I grew up that way, I didn't realize I didn't have any other way to look at it, right? Because it was, to me, in my brain, it was just normal. So I had to learn how to recognize the inner critic, and then just to counter it with, positive, rational, loving thoughts, right? But the other thing is that you've got all these people, right? There's the narcissist, but then there's also all the flying monkeys, and if it's in your family, you've likely dealt with a bunch of people that don't like you or are against you, mostly because of smear campaigns from the narcissist. And you're in some kind of position where it's just sort of like you're just kind of fundamentally on your own. And the narrative that the narcissist spreads, that's why narcissistic abuse is so horrible and insidious, is that, it's almost like if you're in a cult, and it is, I know we've heard that many times, it is a cult. Don't be fooled. It very much is a cult. It's the same deal. The cult leader is the narcissist. And you've got, they wouldn't come out and say it, but really what the narcissist wants is basically for you to worship them, right? They're not going to come out and say that. They're not going to be like, bow down to me, but that's pretty much what they're after, right? That's why they're narcissists. They want everything to be about them. They want to be, the one that's the center of attention and all that stuff. So the other members of the cult are going to sort of repeat the narcissist mantras and the narrative that, if you're the black sheep, that you're bad, you're wrong, even though you're not, right? Even though in your mind you're like, I didn't do this stuff that they're accusing me of, or you know what I mean? I know you know what I'm talking about here. So my point is that you got all these people that are sort of constantly feeding your brain this narrative that's totally untrue and it's just totally dysfunctional and totally toxic at the same time. And because these are people that are, if it's your family, they're supposed to be loving you. They're supposed to be like healthy, happy people in your life, a positive source. But if they're toxic, it can be really bad for you, because your brain is designed to, it's like that's supposed to be your tribe, basically, right? Your family is supposed to be the people who have your back no matter what. Unfortunately, some of us don't have that, where you have people that have your back no matter what, and it's actually the complete opposite, where they're against you no matter what. So, you're dealing with that. You develop the vicious inner critic. And even though you're strong, right? Even though certain stories or lies, certain things they've said just wasn't true or not the way that it actually happened or was twisted in some way, it can be hard for your mind to grapple with, right? Sometimes you might find yourself believing it, like, is it them or is it me, right? Right? How many times have we asked ourselves that question? It's like, wait a minute, like, what's going on here? I mean, how is it that this many people can be, duped? So, I really wanted to talk about sort of the vicious inner critic, the conditioning, and how, one of the first things that we should deal with, when trying to overcome CPTSD is the vicious inner critic. And a great way to do that, as far as I'm concerned, like a great way to start to counter the inner critic, is to adopt the mantra, it's not me, it's them. It's not me, it's them. It is them. That's honestly, it's what's crazy about that is that, and that's true, by the way, if you've dealt with a narcissistic abuse, it is not you. It is them, 100%. And I know that that's why so many of us are on the internet looking up narcissistic personality disorder traits and all this different stuff, and we're still wondering, like it's still in there somewhere. Like, is it me or is it them? Because even it's hard for you to believe that someone could be that crazy, even though you've seen it. I mean, it's just So, it's really helpful to just allow yourself just the basic sort of compassion to just say, you've been through hell. You've been treated like absolute garbage over and over and over again. It was absolutely not fair what happened to you on any level. You've had to deal with things that most people can't even imagine, and it's not your fault. It is them. You were abused, 100%. And when you allow yourself to just feel that and to trust your instincts, because that's the main, as many of us have heard, one of the main thing, this applies to narcissists, but it applies to other abusers too, that are just, they want their victims to not trust themselves, so that they become more sort of emotionally and psychologically dependent on the abuser themselves, right? Narcissists are doing, so they're constantly gnawing away. I mean, dealing with a narcissist, it really is like having a virus on your computer. It's just horrible. It's so unbelievably destructive. And like a virus, it's like, people are like, well, what's the best thing to do with the narcissist? Well, what's the best thing to do with a virus? Get rid of it, get it, you got to clean up your computer. You got to get it out of there. And in this case, it's your internal thinking, your vicious inner critic getting away from, the narcissists themselves. It's horrible. But just, when you find yourself worrying, like, is it me or is it them? Just start to like let yourself relax into the knowingness that, and even if you don't believe it 100%, you can start saying to yourself, it's not me, it's them. It's them. It is them. I'm here to tell you it's them. 100%. I don't care if you just found out about narcissistic abuse today, or it was a boyfriend or girlfriend of yours, or you're a mom or dad or whatever. It's them. And there's a lot of people in this world that'll constantly tell you things like, oh, well, it's got to be you if you're there, right? If you're pointing a finger out at somebody, in blame, then there's three fingers pointed back at you. And that's always been confusing too. I'm sure you've heard something like that. Well, look, I like to be as pragmatic and real as I possibly can. I just like to call it as it is, right? Now, sometimes things happen that are your fault. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take responsibility for your life or whatever, but there are very, very many cases where something happens and it really is somebody else's fault. Placing blame on someone is perfectly okay, and it's what needs to be done. I mean, when someone commits a crime, it's, and what do they always do? They don't blame me. I mean, to me, it just sounds like, somebody who got caught doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, and they're just being, like a little child about it. Don't blame me. Well, you did this and you're getting blamed, right? We're pointing the finger at you. Just, try to, if you haven't done so already, just try to, just take it easy on yourself. That should be the main sort of core focus for you for taking your life back. And especially if you grew up with a narcissist, settling into the fact that your life, everything, like if you grew up with a narcissist or narcissistic people, I mean, your that whole part of your life was just completely stolen from you. I mean, everything, the way that you developed, the relationships you made, it was all colored by the narcissist and by their behavior, by how they treated you, and how in turn the different people you attracted into your life. I mean, I got to a point where I was like, my entire life, like, it's like I was robbed from the start. I mean, it was like I didn't stand a chance. I mean, so many of the relationships I've had that didn't work out, I got to the point where I just wiped the slate clean. I'm still kind of in that phase, by the way, where I'm just more focused on, trying to heal myself and stuff like that. But I just want to completely cleanse my life of all the dysfunction, and that includes people that came into my life as a result of growing up in a dysfunctional environment and then attracting other dysfunctional people that also grew up in dysfunctional environments, right? I mean, I don't want the dysfunction anymore. I want healthy people. And it's got to start with a healthy mind, right? And, taking that, getting back to that place where, or if you've never been there, getting to a healthy minded place is learning to command your thoughts, learning to take hold of your mind. And that really starts with the vicious inner critic. I mean, everybody, whether they have CPTSD or not, always, I don't know about everybody, but I know there's a lot of people that, they say in psychology anyway, most people, they're really down on themselves. They're really hard on themselves, sort of inwardly, in their mind. Look, I believe that I honestly, personally believe that, we as human beings are on a healing journey that's deeper than we can imagine right now. That's what I personally believe. I honestly got to the point where I just believe everything is fundamentally about healing and love and stuff. Learning to love yourself and to heal yourself is got to be the first step, right? And so that's true for everybody, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't apply to anyone in a greater way than those of us who have been just torn to shreds psychologically and emotionally by narcissists and narcissistic abuse. God forbid if it's one of our parents or both of them or different family members. If someone needs some compassion and understanding and just to feel like everything's just okay, it's us. It's people that, deal with CPTSD and are constantly worried about the narcissist or what they're thinking or what they're going to do, or whether it really is them or if it's you or if it's them. So I would say, a big part of taking your mind back is to condition your brain, to recondition your brain and your mindset to the point where you realize it's not your fault. It really isn't. I know that sounds kind of cliche. We've heard that in different movies and stuff from different therapists and stuff like that. But really, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. What happened to you, was horrible, and if you're still going through it, it's still horrible. It's something that's never going to quite go away. I mean, it's so unbelievably painful and devastating that it's never going to quite leave you. I mean, it's like if a close friend of yours or loved one or family member dies prematurely or something. I mean, you'll heal, you'll move on, but it's one of those things that it's never fully like fixed, And that's what it's like dealing with CPTSD from narcissistic abuse, especially if it's your family. I mean, it's just like, it's just absolute devastation. So learn to take it easy on yourself and start in your own thoughts, right? And the first way you can start doing that is just to remind yourself it's not me, it's them. Anytime they start acting up or you start thinking about something they said or did, just try to remember, like, it's not me, it's them. It is them. I'm here to be just another person in your corner to validate your experiences and to, support you in being seen and heard for what you've been through. And I can promise you, if you've dealt with narcissistic abuse, it's not you, it's them. It's 100% them. So, and something else that's is pretty insidious too when you start to think about it is that, speaking for myself, there was the subconscious messages that are given to you by a narcissist, especially if it's your mother or something, they're so insidiously hateful and dark that, you don't even realize that you're being trained to hate yourself by them. Right? And you're being trained to believe at the deepest levels that you really are unworthy of being cared for. Right? I mean, they treat you like you're some like horrible, piece of garbage. I mean, to me, it's on an emotional level. It was like the experience of just being like locked in a basement somewhere, just given like some bread and water, on a regular basis just to keep me alive. And me, it's like, and then everybody's upstairs laughing and having a good time and believing that I'm in the basement because, for some story that the narcissist made up or something. That's a lot. That's what it was like, for me. And, nobody, it's like I just experienced so much of people not actually caring about me or just not liking me that I just really believed that I wasn't worthy of love or caring, right? And where does that start? It starts with you. It starts with, you not caring about yourself. People talk about letting the narcissist win or not letting the narcissist win. And I would argue that the way you beat them is by not allowing their behavior and everything that they did to you to get you to a point where you're not caring about yourself. And that's another thing. Radical self-acceptance and radical self-care is also really the core of healing from CPTSD. You've got to care for yourself, and you've got to care for yourself hard. And I don't mean just like getting the right stuff to eat. I mean really like consciously making sure, it's like an exercise. And that's how emotionally emaciated we have been, and how we were conditioned. That's the degree to which many of us stopped caring about ourselves or continue not to, right? Even allowing other people into your life that don't treat you with respect, even if they're not a narcissist. I kind of went on the opposite direction on that. I don't play. Like I've had enough disrespect for many lifetimes. So, it's just about it's about caring about yourself and not letting the narcissist get you to that point in your mind where you feel not just worthless, but I mean, just think about this, right? What we're talking about here. We haven't even really scraped the surface of narcissistic abuse here in this episode, but this is horrible. Like anybody listening to this, that's just your average person who doesn't have any idea what narcissistic abuse is. This is some horrible, horrible stuff. I mean, this is beyond belief. Nobody should have to go through anything like this. If some people did some bad stuff and had to go to jail, I wouldn't even want narcissistic abuse to be like a form of punishment on somebody psychologically or emotionally or, I mean, they talk about, what do they say? It's, I think it's in the Bill of Rights, I think. I'm not one of those. I'm not like a scholar of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or anything, so don't quote me here. But there's something about somewhere about not people having the right to be protected from cruel and unusual punishment, right? And like if you commit some crime, you go through due process, and maybe you got to spend some time in jail, right? Or maybe you get a life sentence, but at least in America and many other countries, I mean, you can't just there's rights even if you're a prisoner. You can't be going through torture every day or whatever, even though it's pretty torturous enough as it is in prison. But, I think narcissistic abuse is a form of extreme cruel and unusual punishment. And I just, it's like, God, do you ever think to yourself, like, God, what did I do to... what did I do to deserve this? My God, holy crap. I mean, you know what I mean? And to believe that, you must have to have some belief in a past life or something, because, I mean, that's the only thing that has kept me kind of sane many times. Is like, man, I must have just been I don't know, maybe I was a really bad person in a past life or something, because this is horrible. I mean, I didn't do anything in this life to deserve this, but, man, if you find yourself wondering if it's you or them, just just repeat it to yourself. It's not me, it's them. It's not me, it's them. It's okay. You can do it. And get to maybe even write note cards. You know what? Note cards are one of my favorite things. Because you can They're quick, right? And you could use it for anything. But I like to use them personally for, like positive affirmations, or just starting the day with like some more uplifting thoughts in my head, right? Because if I let my mind wander, there's so much negativity that I can sink into, that historically anyway, that I had to get used to, consciously changing. And I'm not perfect, believe me. With this, it's an everyday, it's work, But that's why I like the note cards so much, because I can start the day, maybe think about what I'm grateful for, even if it's just one thing or two things, or maybe create some goals, and to have something to look forward to, or just something to think about that brings me joy and excitement. And then what's cool is, you can kind of take your note cards with you through the day, right? And if you get like an extra minute or two downtime, even at work or school, you can just go through them, like, or even just write yourself like little reminders that, again, like this mantra here, it's not me, it's them. You could write that down on a note card and just take it with you wherever you go. And if you're ever, I especially liked it when if I had like an emotional flashback, my note cards were my go-to for, like my support system, right? I mentioned this before, but I had to create a system for support because I didn't have I didn't have a support system as far as people were concerned. And I couldn't trust anybody. I really couldn't trust anybody to give me what I needed, or to actually, so I had to create a way for me to get support on my own. And the note cards are always my favorite. So, and then of course you can, review them at night and stuff before you go to bed, and all that type of stuff. Especially if you like read certain things out loud, and a couple times, it might seem kind of silly, but that is actually how you'll ultimately overcome your negative self-talk and the vicious inner critic. And you'll realize that, if you start doing stuff like this, that your brain is amazing. It's like I don't even know what to say. It's like some kind of supercomputer. And when you realize like the power it has, and what it can actually do, taking care of it, and getting the right nutrition and enough sleep, and, not doing a bunch of drugs, and, just trying to keep your brain like, functioning at top-notch levels. And that includes, surrounding yourself with good people and good company to keep those thoughts, kind of in a higher place. You can do anything. And, so for those of us who've been through extreme trauma, we've got to, we've kind of, it's kind of like we have to, and people have said similar things before, where it's like many of us almost have to become like superheroes, sort of, or maybe just regular heroes. I don't know. But we like to get our lives back from the devastation of narcissistic abuse. It almost requires us to tap into our potential in a bit of a deeper way than your average person has to, just so that we can get back to, a place of being able to function sort of like, quote, normally. But once you experience that, you're like, wow, like, okay, now I can, I get it. I kind of, once your life has been like hell because you've been around a narcissist, but once you get them out of your life, and once you get, all that stuff in your mind that they programmed you out of your mind, and you find better, healthier people who aren't going to be constantly causing problems and putting you down, and, just constantly creating negativity and toxic, situations, you'll feel so much better, and you'll be able to do whatever you want with your life, because you won't have to be spending so much time, dealing with this person, and all their nonsense. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say to you today is, in your journey towards taking your life back, dealing with the vicious inner critic is probably the best place to start. and adopting the mantra, it's not me, it's them, is a helpful one. You certainly don't have to do this. You don't have to, you know, make note cards or whatever. But it's helpful. It's helpful to reprogram your mind. And then once you start being able to do that, you'll know how to talk to yourself with loving, rational thoughts, because you'll feel better, right? Like, those thoughts, some of you might be able to relate to this, but I was always one of those people that I was like, forget about anxiety. I mean, I had the kind of mind, like, I was just always worried. I was just always worried that something was going to go wrong no matter what it is. And, living like that is not fun. And the reason, I was living like that, and many others as well, is because of the narcissistic abuse, because the shoe's always going to drop. You're never really okay, right? You're always on edge because you don't know when the next, chaos is going to happen, and you don't know what can prevent it. So you're in a sort of like state of psychological torture from the narcissist, and your own brain is sort of reinforcing it. And I realized, oh my God, that's horrible. I can't believe I've been living like this all through my childhood, all through my early adult years. Just kind of constantly feeling this sense of like worry and that things aren't going to be okay, and that was given to me. I never felt okay. Like, I never felt like everything was okay. And, when I started to learn how to, and so a lot of that, you got to understand, a lot of that, the vicious inner critic is always like having you worried. It might have you worried about stuff that's just completely irrational, right? And that's where, it's like, well, this could go wrong. And it's like, yeah, but that's so crazy. Like the odds of something like that happening are just, so low. But my point is, for me anyway, my mind, I had the kind of mind that would just kind of keep racing, man. I just never felt like everything was going to be, I always felt like everything was going to go wrong. And once I learned how to like soothe myself, like on the inside, to say like, okay, well, you're worried about this particular thing, but this doesn't make sense because of this, and this, and it's kind of irrational thinking, right? It's an irrational fear you're having right now. I began to, and you're okay. Like, I just started telling myself I was okay. Just kind of, I know it sounds weird to give yourself like self-comfort, but that's what it takes, man. That's what it's, there's nothing that I like. Once I learned how to do that, to recognize my vicious inner critic, and then to soothe myself, just to be like, okay, like, I'm feeling like this because of my vicious inner critic. This is all just totally irrational thinking, and just I'm, wigging myself out here, worried about all these different possibilities, and it's just completely unnecessary, right? Now, unfortunately, again, my situation came from the narcissistic abuse, and never feeling like I was okay, or like, because that's what it is like dealing with a narcissist. It's so crazy that's what you are dealing with that. So it's kind of weird, because it's like they're irrational thoughts, but they've been given to you by experiences that actually happened. So for everyday normal people, they're not going to be worried about stuff to the extent that we are, because they don't have to deal with just constant chaos and, constant crises from a narcissist. So just learn to breathe, and learn to, soothe yourself. Learn to recognize your inner critic, and to just soothe yourself, That's really the core of it, really, of emotional healing, is just learning to love and care for yourself and soothe yourself, especially in situations where, maybe you're having an emotional flashback, or, just something really stressful is happening. Just learning to, it's really a combination of, your breathing and your thoughts. If you can kind of get a handle on, controlling your breathing and controlling your thoughts from sort of like irrational fears and stuff like that to more rational, grounded, logical type thinking. That can help a great deal to overcome panic attacks and emotional flashbacks and stuff like that. And again, the note cards are great for being there for you in case you forget, right? Like if you forget whatever your mantras are or whatever your positive thoughts are or rational thoughts, then the note cards will be there for you. I even put stuff in my phone, like in my little notepad area on my iPhone. I'll just like list some reminders of like in case I'm having a bad time or something like that. So it's not you, it's them, 100%. And I think you should. I don't know how, where you are in your life, but there's a good chance that you spent the bulk of your life dealing with this crap in some way, shape, or form. And I really think that the rest of your life, no matter how old you are, should be about you and your healing, and that you and your well-being should be the top priority for the rest of your life. I mean, obviously, if you have kids and stuff, you've got to take care of them and take care of those responsibilities. But I think you owe it to yourself to make yourself a priority, to do things for yourself that bring you joy, right? And to say, hey, let me give you an example. Like if you're nervous to go somewhere to some social outing, instead of trying to make yourself feel guilty or trying to force yourself to do that, just do the opposite of what everyone else says you should do and just allow that to be okay. Right? It's like, you know what? I'm not comfortable with this. Most of us have trouble with social situations with CPTSD because of extreme trauma that we actually went through with people for real. Right? So, if you don't exactly feel like going to a social situation, just say, it's okay. It's fine. Allow you, even if everyone else disagrees with you, agree with yourself. Give yourself what you need because it's your life at the end of the day. Right? So, anyway, I hope that all was coherent. The main point of all this is just to take it easy on yourself, right? In your healing process and your healing journey, and just allow yourself to place blame where it's due, where it really does belong, and to realize that if you've been through narcissistic abuse, it wasn't your fault, and you've been through hell. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing good, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.